Yeah, so my name is Stu Henderson. I'm the Clean Energy Program Manager for the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council. We are the folks who in Washington State will be providing doing the evaluation and review of this project. And if it is approved, we'll be working with it going forward. This is a fairly complicated project, as you may have seen. It actually, because it goes down the middle of the Columbia River, this is not just FSEC that is part in charge of this process. We are specifically in charge of parts of it that are strictly on the Washington side. And our counterparts in Oregon, the Oregon FSEC, are responsible for the parts that are strictly on the Oregon side. We've tried to work very closely with them for the parts that are in the river. We were going to originally do two separate studies, one of the Oregon salmon and one of the Washington salmon. We realized we couldn't distinguish from them, so we want to have one study of all the salmon that we all commonly together agree on is the right study and gives us the right information to make sure that this project is everything that needs to be done is done so that it can be done safely and effectively. And then the Army Corps of Engineers and other federal agencies will also be involved in part of this. But so tonight we're in a second here, we're going to introduce the rest of our FSEC staff and the folks from Cascade Renewable Transmission. I'll let you introduce decide who you want to have introduced. Then I will be doing a presentation about our portion of the review process, the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council's process. Cascade Renewable will be doing then a presentation about the project. And then hopefully we have some time for questions. This is not a public hearing. We are not here to take comments. There is a way to submit comments outside of this, and I'll explain that when we get to that point. But this is a public information meeting. So, but we will take, if there is time, we will do question and answers. We're going to turn first to if we have some members of the FSEC Council who may be online. We want to get their questions answered first, and we'll turn to folks in the room if there's any questions. Some of which maybe get answered here, some of which we just can, connect to the right person. You get your answers later, and then we'll turn to other if there's other questions from public members or other folks who are online. Could also be other people from Washington or even Oregon state government online. We'll get their questions, and then of course we'll be stopping at 7 o'clock. But folks will be around to answer questions at that time too, if we have any of those. So again, I'm Stu Henderson with the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council and the Clean Energy Programs Manager.
I'm Maria Belkina. I'm a site specialist of this project.
I'm Joan Owens. I lead the admin team for FSEC. Next to me is Andrea Grantham, and in the back is Alex Shiley, also admins.
Great. And Susan, you want to do introductions on your side?
Oh, it's open? Oh, there we go. Good evening. I'm Susan Brown. I'm with PowerBridge. I'm a project coordinator.
Hi, I'm Ernie Griggs. I'm with PowerBridge some 17 years, and my background is hydroelectric and HVDC transmission.
Ernie and I will be walking through a presentation for you tonight, but there's other members of our team here tonight who are available to answer your questions, and I think you may have met during the open house.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. So you're not doing it there, too.
I can do that. Sure.
No, it's up to you.
We'll leave it in.
Okay. Great. Thanks. All right. Well, then we can go into our the presentation on the FSEC process. So again, welcome to everyone who's here, and thank you for participating this evening. This will be a short presentation on the overall FSEC process for folks who are unfamiliar with our agency. I got to click two places. All right. So a little bit about the history of FSEC. FSEC was created in 1970 for the siting of thermal power plants. The intent was to create a one-stop permitting agency for large energy facilities. FSEC is comprised of state and local government members. who review each application that comes before it before voting to make a council recommendation that goes to the governor. If FSEC recommends approval, the package the governor includes what's called a draft site certification agreement, or SCA, which defines all the pre-construction, construction, and operations plans associated with a project. If the project gets approved by the governor's office, that decision preempts any other state or local regulations that might be involved. FSEC is comprised of members from several different state-level agencies. The chairperson is appointed by the governor, and there are standing members from 5 other agencies appointed by those agencies to sit on the council. The current council is made up of Chairwoman Kathleen Drew, Eli Levitt from the Department of Ecology, Mike Livingston from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Liz Osborne from the Department of Commerce, and Lenny Young from the Department of Natural Resources, and Stacy Brewster from the Utilities and Transportation Commission. There are additional agencies that may elect to appoint a council member during the review of a new application. These agencies are the Department of Agriculture, Department of Transportation, the Department of Health, and the Military Department. The local county can also appoint a council member for the review of a new application, and if a proposal is located at a port, the port may appoint a non-voting member. There's many different energy facilities that fall under FSEC's jurisdiction. Some projects, such as thermal power plants greater than 350 megawatts and nuclear generation for the purpose of generating electricity, are required to be cited through FSEC, while others, such as wind, solar, green hydrogen storage, or clean energy manufacturing, can opt in. So they're frequently could get approved by a county or other local government, or come through the state with the FSEC. Transmission lines greater than 115 kilovolts can also opt in, and if they're more than 500 kilovolts, then they're required to come through FSEC. And there are various thresholds for pipelines and refineries that you can find in the Revised Code of Washington. This is a map. Not sure how well folks can see it, but this is also available online. This is a map of facilities that are certificated or have applied for certification under FSEC jurisdiction. You'll see 6 of them marked in green, which are the 6 facilities currently operating that FSEC is or oversees the regulation of. There's 2 natural gas facilities, 1 nuclear facility, 1 solar facility, and 2 wind facilities. The blue marks indicate 4 additional facilities that have been approved but are not yet constructed. And there's a clear circle for 1 facility that's in the process of decommissioning. And FSEC is currently reviewing 6 projects, which are marked by yellow here, including the one we're here about tonight, the Cascade Renewable Transmission Line pre-application proposal. We're right now in what we call the pre-application process. Some of you have worked with FSEC on other projects that we've cited, didn't have this part of it. This is something that's is mandated through legislation, specifically with transmission, because it covers so many different jurisdictions. So there's a pre-application process to increase involvement with the public. This is a flow chart that shows that process. And the green marks indicate things that are already complete. So we had initial consultation meetings quite some time ago with Cascade Renewable. They prepared their pre-application. It was filed late in December. Notification was sent out. Public notice about this meeting was sent out, and here we are in the first of 3 public information meetings. There'll be 2 more over the next couple of days in the other counties that are affected by the project. Also underway are negotiations to designate with local governments to designate the corridor that this will pass through. Those could be extended, but once those negotiations are complete and once these 3 public meetings are complete, the project can then go on for the normal application process, which I will describe right now. So the site certification process of FSEC has three kind of parts to it. So here, this is a flow chart showing the general process that an application will go through when they submit an application to FSEC. There are green arrows on the chart which indicate the specific milestones in the process where the council and staff seek public input. So you can see there's a large number of those. You can see that there are multiple processes that happen concurrently when FSEC is reviewing an application. There's the land use hearing on the left there, an adjudicative process. There's the state environmental policy or SEPA process that's outlined in the middle. And then on the right, the third process involves identifying and preparing applicable environmental permits. All these processes ultimately feed into the council's recommendation that gets made to the governor. Where an adjudication is acquired following the land use consistency hearing, an order is issued to commence proceedings and initiate intervention. Here, members of the public wishing to participate in the adjudication must identify themselves and their issues in writing. There are pre-hearing conferences through which parties are granted intervention status and issues are identified. Exhibits and testimony are provided and cross-examination is conducted, after which the council looks at all the information in the adjudication record and deliberates. Finally, the council develops an order establishing their findings of fact and conclusions of law from the information that was provided through these proceedings. For every project proposed, there is a SEPA review that's performed as well. When a determination of significance and a decision to prepare an environmental impact statement, or EIS, is made, then public comments are taken on the scope of the EIS. After public comment for scoping, the SEPA responsible official determines the scope of the EIS. And a draft EIS is prepared and issued with a minimum 30-day public comment period, after which the final EIS is prepared and released. In some instances, with some projects, there could be a determination of non-significance or a mitigated determination of non-significance, but this is a significant enough project that will definitely have an EIS, so I'll skip over that. And following the conclusion of these separate avenues of application review, the council develops its recommendations to the governor, tying together the information brought forth through all the phases of the application review process. FSEC is also the issuing agency for any applicable environmental permits a facility may require in the state of Washington, including water quality and air quality permits as they may apply. The permits are identified in the final package with the council's recommendation when it goes to the governor. For the purpose of this proposal, FSEC is coordinating with other agencies of jurisdiction, such as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Oregon state agencies, to ensure that all requirements will be met and appropriate permits issued by our respective parties. We actually have at least one person who's in the meeting from the state of Oregon. Chris, if you want to say anything, put up your hand, and when I finish my presentation here, we can. Would love to hear any comments that you might be able to make. So at the conclusion of the council's review for an application, a recommendation is made to the governor to either approve or reject the application. This initiates a 6-day window within which the governor will either approve the application, reject the application, or send it back, remand it to the council for reconsideration. If a application is rejected by the governor, that's the final decision for that application. FSEC, if an application is approved by the governor, FSEC then has oversight of the environmental compliance for the life of the facility through decommissioning. So FSEC has standing contracts with applicable state agencies that assist in the monitoring and enforcement of conditions either in the site certification agreement, identified permits, or the EIS. FSEC's enforcement authority extends to the issuance of any penalties as they may apply. And as previously mentioned, FSEC also oversees facilities under its jurisdiction through decommissioning. So prior to the start of construction of approved projects, an initial site restoration plan is required. Then at the end of the life of the facility, prior to the start of decommissioning, a detailed site restoration plan is required. These plans must be reviewed and approved by the council. The project must also provide financial assurance for the decommissioning in the event that the project is no longer able to complete the process. So assuming the project decommissions while still under full control of the developer, those costs would be paid by the certificate holder directly. So this wraps up my presentation for the evening, but before I end, I'd like to remind everyone how they may submit comments for this proposal. Again, this is a public meeting. We're not here we didn't come explicitly to accept comments, and when we open it up, we're really just opening to questions to understand what's going on, not to comments on this project. But you may send comments in writing, in email to comments@fsec.wa.gov. Or by postal mail to the address listed there, or by phone 360-664-1345. When FSEC is in active comment period associated with specific milestones, so those little green arrows we had in the previous chart, when we're specifically in public comment mode, comments may also be submitted to our online comment database at https://comments.fsec.wa.gov. That is not activated right now, so that one pathway is not open at this time. But all comments received, regardless of timing or method, will be saved with the project record and be available to council and staff for review. And did Chris put a hand up? Yeah. So, Chris, are you there?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Well, can you introduce yourself and just give folks a sense of how we're coordinating and where this process is on the Oregon side?
Sure, thanks, Stu. Yeah, my name is Christopher Clark. I am a senior siting analyst with the Oregon Department of Energy, and I am supporting the Oregon Energy Facility Siting Council's review of this facility. Oregon FSEC's a similar body to their Washington counterparts. They make the permitting decision for large energy facilities in Oregon. We completed our notice of intent review process, which is similar to the pre-application process last spring, and we'll also be conducting a full review after we receive the application, which I think is expected a little later this year. We'll also be having public hearings and a public comment process, which I'm happy to answer any questions about that might come up tonight. Otherwise, I just want to thank all of my Washington colleagues for the great coordination and helping to make sure that we are coordinated and comprehensive.
Thanks, Chris. So again, that was Chris with the Oregon Energy Facility site. Chris is our counterpart on the Oregon side. I want to make sure folks know we're working together. Been working together for over a year on this, and with that, let's hand it over to Susan for the presentation from the Cascade Renewable Transmission Project.
Do you have her? Great, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming, and thank you to all of our FSEC people for facilitating the evening. It's the arrow. I'm delighted to have the opportunity tonight to introduce you to our Clean Energy Renewable project. It's an innovative project essential to helping Washington and Oregon achieve the clean energy goals and to meet the challenges of climate change. Before I begin our presentation, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this area is within the ancestral homelands and territories of the indigenous people of the Columbia River. This acknowledgement does not take place of authentic relationships with the tribal nations. It's merely a first step. And our commitment to honoring and respecting tribal interests and cultural resources in the proposed project area. With that, there's a couple things I'd like you to keep in mind as I walk through this presentation, and that is this 100-mile transmission line, 81 miles in the Columbia River and 19 miles underground. It begins in the Dalles and ends in the Rivergate section of Portland. It bypasses the Bonneville Dam on land underground. It avoids negative impacts of overhead transmission lines, visual, wildlife habitat, and the risk of wildfire. It will be built over a 36-month period. River installation will occur mostly in the winter in around state-sanctioned in-river work periods to avoid spawning times and fish migration periods. Marine transmission is commonly used around the world. Our company has built 2 such projects and currently operates them in the New York, New Jersey area. And with that, I look forward to introducing you to our project and taking your questions after. The situation. What is the situation? To meet the climate crisis, Washington and Oregon has passed bold clean energy laws for electric transmission utilities. In Washington, CETA requires that 80% of energy be carbon neutral by 2030 and 100% by 2045. In Oregon, House Bill 2021 requires similarly 80% carbon free by 2030, 90% by 2035, and 100% by 2040. Unfortunately, what's missing is the transmission needed to bring the clean energy resources to the area that the highest demand. Most resources are located east of the Cascades, and most need is west of the Cascades. So this is the situation. In PGE's recent IRP, which is a planning document that they filed with the PUC, they acknowledge that it's virtually impossible for them to meet their 2030 emission targets without upgrading and building new transmission lines. The need is urgent. There is minimal to no available east to west transmission capacity right now on the grid. The new generation resources are stranded. The BPA queue to bring new generation online is hundreds of projects long and not moving because there is no transmission to accommodate the new resources. Energy demand is increasing, the population is increasing, transportation and building sectors are increasing the need for clean energy, for more energy, and that's before we even get to the CETA and HB 2021 regulations. And of course, to build transmission with overhead lines creates a high risk of wildfires that our project does not. I'm going to turn our slides over to Ernie Griggs, who can tell you about our technology.
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and if you look at the picture on the right side, that is a cable bundle that is in service for our Neptune project. The cable slice, the diameter of it, as you can see on the picture on the left-hand side, is about the size of a cell phone, a little less than 6 inches. This is proven technology. If you are interested and you want to do a little research, feel free to go out and search on HVDC interconnectors. You'll find that in Europe is so far ahead of the United States with regards to putting HVDC interconnection transmission circuits in service. There's a slide that we'll show you in a little while that gives you an explanation of some of the projects, but they are really out in front. The United Kingdom has been there for 10 or a dozen years at least. Germany is way out in front in terms of pulling in offshore wind into the country. So this particular technology uses high voltage direct current, which is contrary to all of us who grew up under AC transmission. And it's controllable. You have the ability to work with the AC system networks, and you can bring power in a controlled, dispatched way. Also, we have the ability to assist with system voltage. We can dispatch megavars, which is the other part of the electric transmission. We are not as challenged as AC systems are in terms of our ability to work with AC networks and dispatch of power and all the things that are going to go with that. We even have the ability in the future to handle balancing variable supply and variable load. We all are aware that the load goes up and down on a regular basis. Well, with variable supplies such as wind and solar, we'll see those same conditions. And the demands that will be put on the electric system will be significant over the next 20 years. So what you see for the cable, that's going to be basically delivered into the river in the same way. I've got a slide a little bit later that'll explain how we actually install it in the river bottom. And as a practical matter, once it goes in, our Neptune project is in its 17th year. Our Hudson project is in its 10th year. And the cable systems are fairly benign and fairly quiet, and they just operate. And it's not because they're not stressed. Voltage-wise, that cable that you see on the left-hand picture is 500,000 volts, 24/7, 365, year in and year out. So, next slide. This is the cable route. And what you see here, starting right to left, is we will connect to the BPA 500 kV Big Eddy substation. We'll have a converter station installed fairly close to that, and then convert it to DC. The cable that you just saw in the underground form will find its way down. We use public roads. We don't look to disturb new or sensitive areas. We use HDD means to actually get the cable into the river. And once we've got it into the river, we will use a burial system, which is basically cable loaded on a barge. We use the hydroplow system as far as being able to install the cable into the river bottom. And from there, we will go all the way down to Stevenson, where we will come out of the river and go around the Bonneville Dam. And that's no accident. It's too complicated trying to work with the basic dam safety requirements. It's not something that you would normally do. Think about penetrating a dam or anything like that. So as a practical matter, we come out, we pick up highway to take us around the dam, go back into the river on Hamilton Island, go back to our cable lay system where we actually install it back into the riverbed. It takes us all the way down to Hayden Island, down in Portland. And from there, we will cross Hayden Island. We'll go under a couple of sloughs. We have a converter station to be installed on Hayden Island in the industrial Rivergate complex. From there, it will take 230,000 volts and connect it over to the Harborton substation, which is on the other side of the Willamette River. So that's the system. Again, 1,100 megawatts. It's in a way, it's almost like installing an 1,100 megawatt generator there in Portland, except it doesn't have all of the other attributes of a generating station, such as a coal pile, oil tanks, and all that good stuff. So, next slide. All right. Okay. The dowels is a fairly straightforward installation. Again, we've got the ability to connect into the Big Eddy 500 kV substation. We're also next to another HVDC system, which has been around for a very long time, and that's the Pacific DC Intertie. That's the Solilo converter station there. We will use their access roads and get down to the state highway. From there, we'll work our way down. And once we get down to near the river, we'll get to the point on the left-hand side of the picture where we have the ability to HDD into the river. Once that's accomplished, then what we'll do is we'll land the cable, the submarine cable, and we will splice it to the land cable, and that's where we'll create what we call our transition joint. Similarly, in Portland, you'll see in the picture here where we come in on Hayden Island, and if you follow it, there's a converter station located where the little red mark is with the arrow pointing to it, and then the 230 kV cable finds its way through the industrial park over to an underground HDD underneath the Willamette River, and it pops up in the Harborton substation. Next. Okay. This particular stretch has been the subject of quite a bit of conversation. And what we're using primarily is Washington State Route 14 to go around the dam. There is a detour from that. We'll land in Stevenson, and we'll come out by the what's the name of that? Interpretive Center. We will come out there, and we will pick up State Route 14, but we will veer off from it and go up around away from the viaduct, and that's on purpose. Washington DOT asked us to stay away from that. We were able to find another road which allows us the same access, and it's fairly straightforward. HDD brings us out of the water. We use a transition splice to be able to get to the land cable. From there we go down through. We will have more joints in that section because you can't pull quite as much cable through as you do installing it in the river. And then from there we drop back into the river. So that's just a closer view of how we're going to get around Bonneville Dam. This is a typical converter station. It happens to be one that's in service down in California. It's one of the Transbay Cable project has this particular system. The large building is the HVDC converter. That is a special type of solid state power electronics called IGBT technology. The building, the small building up in the upper left-hand corner, that's basically got the control system to handle the conversion process. It's also got part of the valve cooling system, which you can also see on the right-hand side of the building. The AC system is pretty small. There's 3 transformers, and it's compact on 5 acres. That is the extent of what a converter station looks like. Its noise profile is pretty friendly, all things considered, for some of this equipment, and that's what it's going to look like. There'll be 2 of those, 1 at each end. There already. Okay, the picture on the left shows what we call a hydroplow. It's also called a lay burial device. And the picture on the right shows basically what we have. It will require a barge, a couple of tugboats, and the cable itself will be loaded onto the barge. It will in turn, using the same feed mechanism that we showed earlier in the previous picture, it will come down off the barge in catenary. From catenary, it'll go into the hydroplow, into the stinger. The stinger has basically a large funnel at the top. The cable bundle will come into it. The stinger itself has water jets, high pressure water jets on the front part of that tube, if you will, and that will in turn emulsify the riverbed, roughly about 18 inches wide, give or take. And the cable will actually come out of the bottom of the stinger, right in the bottom of the trench. And as that passes through, so the emulsified soils will drop out of emulsion and right back into the trench. And the next thing you know, you've laid the cable and you've buried it all in one pass as you're moving along. We can typically do 1 to 2 miles a day. That's a typical burial rate for assuming that conditions are normal. We also have the ability to position it and microsite it if we come into something that's unexpected. If we find ourselves that we have a particular boulder that wasn't part of the survey or somehow showed up, we can figure out how to deal with that because we'll have marine survey on the boat at the same time, and we will manage that accordingly within the latitude of what we're allowed on our permits. So that's the installation process. We've done it in the Hudson River in New York. We've done it in the Raritan River in New Jersey, the Atlantic Ocean coming up to Long Island. And this is a standard practice that is used around the world. So this is not new technology looking to be proven. This is something that also is part and parcel of what we do. So on that note, I'll drop it back to you.
Thanks, Ernie. Looking at our project schedule, this is, first of all, although the first column is 2024, we've been working on this project since late in 2019. the key tasks that you see, the Northern Grid planning process, the permitting process, and the real estate process have all been ongoing since 2019. We are about to enter our third review with Northern Grid in their planning process. Our permitting efforts have started early on with studies, route evaluations, alternative route evaluations, and lots of refining along the way. We submitted our initial permit, NOI it's called, with the Oregon FSAC last year in March. And of course, we just submitted the Washington FSAC pre-application in December. We think this is a very manageable schedule. We've done this before with 2 other projects, and we would like to see the project come online in mid-2029. Some of this is a little bit of a recap, but the key features of the project, in addition to helping Washington and Oregon meet their clean energy goals, this project will power 800,000 homes and provide resilience and stability to the Northwest grid. It's low impact. As Ernie talked about, the installation technologies are designed to avoid impact to sensitive cultural and natural resources, to avoid habitat, visual, and wildlife impacts of overhead transmission. And it will create a lot of jobs. It will support 300 to 400 high-skilled union jobs and apprenticeship programs at peak construction. It will also provide about 20 to 24 permanent jobs at the converter stations once it's in operation. The cost of the project is estimated at this point to be about $1.5 billion. There will be no public investment required. It will be privately funded and supported once online by ratepayers. It's a tax benefit to the hosting communities. We're not asking for any tax breaks, and we'll ultimately, through the payment of taxes, strengthen the local tax base. The Columbia River Gorge is an amazing scenic national resource. It's beautiful. We love it, and we want to protect it. After a lot of review, we'll, as Stu outlined, the FSEC process, the Oregon process, the Army Corps process will be extensive, and we plan to meet or exceed all federal, state, and local environmental requirements. The project will be respectful and responsive to tribal concerns. We have, and as long as we have been coming out here and talking about this project, we've been told over and over again, have you spoken to the tribes? And we take that to heart. We have made every effort to speak with the tribes. We've met with the treaty tribes and Kritvik and other tribes in the area. We've made every effort to establish an open line of communication. We've made several presentations of the project, similar to what we're doing tonight. And once we submit our Army Corps application, the project will begin the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106 consultation, which is a government-to-government process. So we won't be directly involved in that, but we will continue to reach out to the tribes and make ourselves available for that relationship and to answer questions and responsive to the tribes. Ernie can probably talk a little bit more about EMF, but multiple studies related to electromagnetic fields have found no measurable adverse effects on fisheries and similar marine transmission cables. We've done studies, other studies have been done, and it's a question that comes up frequently, but Ernie could talk about it a little bit more, I think.
One of the things that we've been able to do with current technology is model the system that we intend to build. And the standard measurement for EMF is called a microtesla, and that's the unit of measure. I should also measure that electric field will be contained within the design of the cable. There won't be an electric field voltage generated from the cable. EMF is inductive, and so therefore there will be some induced EMF outside the cable. What we know from our initial model run is that at the river bottom, the natural EMF is 54 microtesla. Our model demonstrates that with our cable 10 feet below, it'll be in the vicinity of 5 microtesla. And so as a practical matter, our contribution is, to say it's negligible is not appropriate, but by the same token, it's significantly lower than what the naturally occurring condition is. So the news we have is good. It's not bad news at all. So that's a bit of it.
Thanks, Ernie. In addition to the technology of the plow, which is a relatively benign installation technology, the river installation will occur during the late fall and winter months to avoid impacts on the fisheries and river recreation. This may happen simultaneously in one period, or it may be done over the course of 2 winter periods. Our 2 projects in New York and New Jersey have been operating for a total of 28 years and have reported no adverse environmental impacts. And we would expect the same performance with what we bring to Portland and Oregon on this project as well. And we do need a lot of permits. The list goes on. And with our projects in New York and New Jersey, we have similar experience working with 2 states and with the Army Corps, so we're a little bit familiar with this. Oh, sorry, thank you. Permits, there they are. Appreciate that. We need an Army Corps. We need 2 permits, 2 major permits from the Army Corps. We need a Section 401 and a Section 408 permit. The Army Corps will presumably be the lead agency for this process. So they'll coordinate the National Environmental Policy Review. They will also, as I mentioned, coordinate the Section 106 consultation for tribal nations under the National Historic Policy Act. We're here tonight working with FSAC and that process. We have submitted our pre-application and hope shortly in second quarter of this year to submit our full application. And similarly, with the state of Oregon, we have submitted a notice of intent to the FSAC last year, as I said, and they have responded to us by issuing a project order to us. And we are currently working on responding to that project order, which will result in our full application late in the first quarter of this year. We will also need interconnection agreements with the Bonneville Power Administration and Portland General Electric. And as I said earlier, we began the permit application process in early 2023, and we continue to do that. Similar marine projects to this exist all around the world. Ernie, you want to talk about it a little bit?
As you look at this table, bottom right-hand corner, 2003, cross-sound cable, went from Connecticut to Long Island. And that was very early stage voltage source converter technology. You can see by 330 megawatts, it wasn't exactly a large project. Not too long after that, there was a project that connected Tasmania to the mainland Australia, 500 megawatts. It's actually a sister project to our Neptune project. And basically the HVDC control system itself is almost the same as ours. The thyristor towers, what we call the valves, they virtually are the same. And as a practical matter, Trans-Bay in 2010 became the first United States VSC project of what's considered modern day VSC technology. So that was early stage development in that regard. Our Hudson project came in on the heels of that. What you see above Hudson as you look up through there is the rapid expansion in Europe. They are very serious about moving to renewables. They're very serious about bringing in offshore wind energy. Certainly Germany, with its supply coming in from Tenant, is one of the major suppliers. They're using all kinds of new applications of this controllable transmission. They're doing things that, candidly, we're way behind, but we will eventually end up there, the same place, and they've sort of in many ways provided a roadmap to be able to do that. And if you look at the power transmitted over these interconnectors, it has steadily grown. We're looking at a couple of them there at 1,400 megawatts. That's not insignificant by any means. And so there is the ability for the transition from the conventional AC transmission that we've seen for our lives in a good century now. We're now seeing that high voltage direct current technology is part of the future as we bring variable supply renewables into the mix. So, like I said earlier, if you want to do a little research, just look up HVDC interconnectors and you'll see some fascinating information about that. So.
Thanks, Ernie. We have mentioned our other projects a couple of times tonight. We're very proud of them. They are the Neptune Regional Transmission System and the Hudson Transmission Project. Both projects are located in New Jersey, bringing power to parts of New York. The Neptune project was completed in 2007 at a cost of $650 million. It links New Jersey, it links to the PJM electric grid. Thank you. And it connects from New Jersey to Long Island Power Authority on Long Island in New York. It's a 65-mile system that operates at 660 megawatts. It's 51 miles underwater. It runs under the Raritan River in New Jersey and mostly under the Atlantic Ocean. And it also runs 14 miles underground along the Wantagh Parkway in Long Island. The Hudson project was completed in 2013 at a cost of $850 million. It links PJM interconnection with the New York grid at a Con Edison substation on West 49th Street in Upper Manhattan. It's 7 miles in total, 4 of which are in the Hudson River, and roughly 3 miles underground, a mile of that in an underground, in an abandoned railroad tunnel. Of course.
Just a couple of takeaways with regards to Neptune. It runs at its full capacity of 660 megawatts pretty much 99% of the time. It's available, it's fully consumed, the customer puts us to work all the time, and they have since we went into service. Hudson is used a little differently. I won't say they do load following, but they certainly do change the dispatch levels consistently. But again, its availability this past calendar year, 99.98%. Last year was 100%. These systems are proven technology that is reliable. So that's just an operational data point.
Thanks, Ernie. And just to, as we wrap things up, I didn't introduce the members of our team that are here in the room with us tonight, but I can do that now. You'll see that Jeff Wood, our Chief Commercial Officer, is on the side over there. Carol Laughlin, our consultant, is in the back. Corey Cooper-Smith, our partner with Sun 2.0, is here as well, and Ray and I are here. Before we close, it's important to us to express our commitment to you. We we respect this process and we want to do it right. We've learned from doing it before that there's no shortcuts. We want to engage openly, honestly, and respectfully with local, state, federal, and tribal governments and residents. We want to go above and beyond. We'll meet and exceed all permitting and regulatory requirements to build and operate this project. And we promise to be responsive. I think we've established a reputation, or we've tried to be responsive. We answer questions that come in as to the best of our ability, and when we don't have the answers, we'll go get them. We also want to be a partner with the community where we build our projects. We want to be a good neighbor. We'll partner with local residents and communities to support organizations and causes to advance the environmental, social, and economic interests of the region. And to that we'll commit, and you can hold us to it. That's it. Questions?
All right, thank you very much, Susan. Again, thank you all so much for being here. We are going to open up to questions. Do we have any council members on the meeting? We are, we'll defer to them. I don't think there are, but if anyone joined, then we'll defer to them first. And we're also letting folks know there's a bunch of people who are online, and we're asking them to raise their hands so they can indicate they want to be asked questions. But again, it's not a public hearing. We're not here to get comments pro or con of this. We aren't like. There is a way to make those kind of comments, but this is not it. So it's sort of like it's sort of like sending your vote in the day after the election. You can say you did it, but it's not gonna help or hurt the outcome. But it is a place for questions, just in public information. So does anyone have any questions here in the audience that you would like to ask, either on the FSEC approval side or on the project itself to the developers? Going once. All right, I'll let you keep thinking. Oh, we got a question. And if you could just say your name and because we're keeping track, and your question.
Okay, my name is Steve Uffelman. I'm from the city of Prineville, Oregon. Just out of curiosity, you're not asking for any money. How are you going to ultimately fund this? Is that through wheeling fees, or what's the process for getting reimbursed for your $1.5 billion investment?
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to let our Chief Commercial Officer, Jeff, take that one.
Jeff Wood with PowerBridge, a good question. I think the best way to think about this is we're an independent transmission developer, and we will ultimately look to get reimbursed for the investment that we make in the same way that BPA does, or Puget Sound, or PGE. It's sort of that same focus. We will build the project, and then we will seek to get recovery from the ratepayers who utilize the project to have the renewable energy delivered to them at the end of the day. Those agreements and arrangements haven't been put into place yet, but it's going to be very similar to the way that the existing utilities, if you will, if they were developing a transmission line, how they would look to get reimbursed for the investment that they make. Let me first ask, does that answer your question? Yes, it does.
Thanks, Jeff.
Other questions from anyone in the audience who would have a question? Yes. And again, you might just say and spell your name if necessary.
Phil Brady, I'm Wesco County Commissioner living in the Dalles. Used to be a science teacher, so I thought, okay, now how many amps is this thing? Am I right? It runs nominally around 1,000 amps?
It's a little bit more than that. It's a function of the final voltage, whether it's plus minus 320 kV or plus minus 400 kV. It could be as much as 1,700 amps in the cable.
So that sounds like a lot to us who are used to 60 amps and 200 amps in our houses. What are some other places where that kind of amperage is normally used?
Once you look at the overhead transmissions around, you'll find various overhead transmission lines will be carrying something equivalent It might be 1,000 amps, it might be 1,200, 1,300 amps. There's 3 conductors versus 2, so that's one of the reasons why. Also, when you look up at the overhead transmission, as each set of conductors we call a phase A, phase B, phase C. And as you look at them, you might see 1 conductor, you might see 2 conductors, you might see 3 conductors that particular phase has in its bundle. If it's carrying 3 conductors or 4, well, the current is fairly high in that phase, and it's the same for all 3 phases. So I hope that helps. Okay.
Other questions? Other questions? We're not seeing any in chat. So I'm ready to make an executive decision related to going to get dinner.
You're buying, right?
Well, not for everybody. But I'll get the appetizers. So I would like to very much thank our FSEC team who they were out here at noon setting up, and our folks who set up the sound, and we have a court reporter also working on this. Really like to thank all the folks from Cascade Renewable. This is the first, but we should get T-shirts of the tour, the Gorge Tour. This is the first of 3 stops, today and tomorrow and the next day. We're definitely going to do that. That's going to happen. The Tour 24 cookie. There may be cookies tomorrow. But for you folks, it was a great presentation. Obviously, it was so clear that there are no questions. Very few questions. Thank all the folks who came, and most of all the folks from the public, elected officials, and others. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I think it's good to end something like this with a round of applause for all the folks who did that. So thank you all, and with that, we'll declare this public information meeting over.